The views and opinions expressed in The Fact Is with Hollis Grant are those of Hollis Grant and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Droids Canada Network. Droids Canada Network does not take responsibility for any content or position produced by Hollis Grant and his show. Listener discretion is advised.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Fact Is. I'm your host, Hollis Grant. And this week, we are looking at Kyle Rittenhouse. It's all over the news. Everybody has an opinion on it. Either you're for the kid, against the kid, you love the kid, hate the kid. But let's look at Kyle Rittenhouse and CNN. Now, we all know about Mr. Sandmann. Mr. Sandmann, the young male that was labeled a white supremacist by CNN. We can touch on him at another time because his name is going to be coming up in the near future, along with more of Kyle Rittenhouse. But really, we're going to look at how the events played out in the media in the days after this tragic event. Now, I can use the term tragic for the people that were shot, the one person that was killed. I don't have much sympathy for these individuals, and I'm sure most don't either, given their background. If you're a Hollywood star or celebrity, you're going to tweet out, like Mark Ruffalo did, about his good friend Jojo. Jojo happens to be a pedophile. Jojo happens to anally rape young boys and was out and was shot that unfortunate evening. But we're going to take a look at two particular articles, actually three articles today. Two from CNN and one from the National Post. And I'm going to take the CNN article, and this was as of August 27th, 2020. So that's August 27th, 2020, just days later from the actual shooting. Now, the headline reads, Kenosha shooting suspect faces more homicide charges. The suspect in Kenosha, Wisconsin's fatal shooting is facing multiple homicide charges, court records show. Kyle Rittenhouse, 17, is accused of a single shooting incident during a night of unrest in Kenosha earlier this week that left 2 people dead and a third person seriously injured, authorities have said. Since his arrest on Wednesday, the Antioch, Illinois teenager has been charged with first-degree intentional homicide, Antioch police said. Prosecutors filed more charges against Rittenhouse on Thursday, adding 1 count of reckless homicide, a count for attempted intentional homicide, and 2 counts of recklessly endangering safety. Court records show he's also being charged with possession of a dangerous weapon while under the age of 18, which is a misdemeanor. Rittenhouse remains in custody of the Lake County Judicial System, awaiting extradition to Wisconsin, Antioch police have said. The teenager is a former member of a youth police cadet program with an affinity for guns, according to police and online profiles. In Grays Lake, Illinois, about 10 miles from Antioch and 30 miles from Kenosha, Police Chief Philip L. Perlini said the suspect in the shooting was a former public safety cadet. The program is designed online as offering youth the opportunity to explore careers in law enforcement. Due to the person's age and state law, the chief said the department couldn't comment further. The teenager was arrested Wednesday and charged with first-degree intentional homicide, Antioch police said in a news release. He turned himself in at the Antioch police headquarters, police said. The shooting came amid protesters over the police shooting of Jacob Blake, a 29-year-old black man. The victims in the shooting incident Tuesday night were identified as 26-year-old from Silver Lake, Wisconsin, and a 36-year-old from Kenosha. Videos that circulated on social media show a person with a long gun running down a street, followed by a crowd. The individual falls to the ground and appears to begin firing. Several shots are heard. This particular part of the article is what is most interesting. This, under the title, what his social media shows. Social media accounts believed to belong to the suspect portraying a young white man, and that's a capital W, So portray a young white man with an affinity for guns who supports, quote, Blue Lives Matter, end quote, and President Donald Trump. A video posted on Snapchat on a Snapchat account believed to belong to the suspect placed him at the scene of protest Tuesday night. The clips show a few seconds of the point of view of someone carrying a long rifle, and police announcements can be heard over loudspeakers. In videos posted to TikTok, or to a TikTok account, individuals can be seen taking part in target practice and assembling a long rifle. Rittenhouse also posted a short video from a Trump rally earlier this year in Des Moines, Iowa, on one of his TikTok accounts. President Trump is not shown in the video. Departing Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway responded to reports of Rittenhouse attendance at a Trump rally, saying that the White House is not responsible for the private conduct of people who goes to rallies. So what's interesting after the events is that CNN has scoured the social media of this young man, going through and picking apart and finding key evidence to suggest that this person is a quote-unquote Nazi, a quote-unquote racist, a bigot, a Trump supporter. Going back to our earlier episodes that you can listen to on droidscanada.com, going back to the name-calling, the accusing people of what you are. And that's an effective way to shut down speech, to label this individual. Because the next article is also extremely fascinating. So this is from an unfortunate event that recently just occurred in Wisconsin. Now, this particular article is dated November 22nd, 2021. This is just days later from the actual event. And it's titled, Police Identify the Driver They Say Plowed into Waukesha Christmas Parade, leaving 5 dead and 48 injured. This truly is a tragedy in all sense. Absolutely. Senseless violence. Ridiculous to do. And it's a shame for all those involved. And our thoughts and prayers go out to those individuals. Authorities in Wisconsin have identified the driver of a red SUV who they say intentionally drove his SUV through barricades and into a crowd celebrating the Waukesha Christmas Parade. Darrell E. Brooks Jr., 39, is believed to have acted alone Sunday and is the only suspect, Police Chief Dan Thompson said on Monday. Brooks faces 5 counts of first-degree intentional homicide with additional charges based on the investigation, Thompson said. Brooks had been released from jail less than 2 weeks ago in a domestic abuse case on a $1,000 bail that prosecutors recommended and now say was inappropriately low. Brooks will have his initial court appearance 4 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday, at which initial charges will be filed, according to a statement from the county district's attorney office. The hearing will be available via live stream for the public to view. Quote, we are working closely with the city police department to review the matter and decide what criminal charges will be issued, read the statement. Thompson said Brooks was involved in a domestic disturbance with another person just prior to driving his SUV through the parade Sunday afternoon. Police were not able to respond to the initial call about the domestic incident because they had responded to the parade so quickly after receiving the call, the chief said. The police stressed there was no police pursuit leading up to the incident. Thompson said there was no information that Brooks knew anyone in the parade. 5 people were killed in the incident. They ranged from ages 52 to 81, Thompson said. The police chief acknowledged the heroism of onlookers at the scene, saying first responders and residents worked together to triage the victims and get them as stable as possible. He said officers and citizens took victims to the hospital in their personal vehicles. At least 18 children were hospitalized after the parade, said Children's Wisconsin, a pediatric hospital in nearby Milwaukee. Thompson said the incident is not a terrorist event. The crash also does not appear to be connected to the recent verdict in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial in Kenosha, Wisconsin, according to multiple law enforcement sources familiar with preliminary investigation findings. Brooks was released on a $1,000 bail earlier this month, according to court records in Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office, which said in a statement that the bail had been set inappropriately low. Brooks posted bail on November 11th in relation to the charges including domestic abuse. The charges stemmed from a November 2nd incident for which Brooks is accused of running over a woman in his car while she was walking through a gas station parking lot, according to a criminal complaint. Officers observed tire tracks on her pant legs, the criminal complaint read. Prosecutors filed 5 charges related to the incident, including obstruction an officer, second-degree recklessly endangering safety with a domestic abuse assessments, disorderly conduct with domestic abuse assessments, and misdemeanor battery with domestic abuse assessments. Brooks was also charged with bail jumping because he was already out on bail following a July 24th, 2020 incident, according to court documents. In a statement, the Milwaukee District Attorney's Office now says it should not have recommended such a low bail for Brooks and have launched an internal review into the decision. The state's bail recommendation in this case was inappropriately low in light of the nature of the recent charges and the pending charges against Mr. Brooks, the office's statement said. The bail recommendation in this case is not consistent with the approach of the Milwaukee County District's office toward matters involving violent crime, nor was it consistent with the risk assessment of the defendant prior to setting of bail. CNN reached out to Brooks' attorney from the 2020 and earlier November 2021 incident about the DA's statement, but has not yet received a response. Now, the article goes on to highlight more about the bail and how it should have been higher or should have been lower. And then it goes on to talk about how the disaster unfolded, and it gives a breakdown of where people were. And then it goes into the victims and how they were just dancing and enjoying a good time at a parade. And too many graphic photos to be shown. But what it doesn't go on to do is to talk about the social media of Mr. Brooks. Now, in this whole description, we wouldn't know who Mr. Brooks is, but we do know from the prior article, we know that Kyle Rittenhouse is white because a CNN made a deliberate attempt to scour through the social media to find out as much dirt on this individual as possible. Because he has to be a Trump supporter. Who would shoot some people? Who would do such a horrible thing as going to a protest and gunning down 2 individuals and shooting a third? Only a terrible white supremacist Trump supporter could do such a disgusting act. Now, the reason why I bring that following statement up is because we can compare it to this article where we don't know the individual's skin color and we don't know his social media post. Now, the New York Post did an article, and this is from November 24th. And Darnell Brooks shared pro-Hitler memes called for violence against white people. The ex-con charged over the deaths of 6 people at a Wisconsin Christmas parade shared social media posts calling for violence against white people and suggesting, quote, Hitler was right, end quote, for killing Jews. Darnell Brooks Jr., who has a decades-long rap sheet, shared a series of disturbing memes and messages on social media, most of which have been deleted since his arrest for Sunday's deadly carnage. They include numerous posts attacking cops, comparing them to Ku Klux Klan members, and calling them, quote, violent street gangs, end quote, as well as calling for violence towards white people according to screenshots. Quote, learned, taught behavior, end quote, he wrote on June 9th last year, amid the violent upheaval over George Floyd's murder by a Minnesota cop, according to a screenshot shared by the Daily Mail. Quote, so when we start back knocking white people the fuck out. Ion want to hear it. The old white people too knock them the fuck out, period, end quote. He wrote under his rap name, Math Boy Fly, along with a middle finger emoji. Police have yet to announce a motive for Sunday's carnage, but all 6 who died, including an 8-year-old boy, were white. In 2015, he also shared a disturbing anti-Semitic meme that appears to align with the beliefs of the Black Hebrew Israelites, according to another screenshot shared by the Daily Mail, titled, quote, Hitler knew who the real Jews were, end quote. It shares the wildly debunked claim that the Nazi maniac had warned that his genocide was partly driven because he knew, quote, the Negroes are the true Hebrews, end quote. It suggests World War III would start when people, quote, learn Hitler was right, end quote, and, quote, did the world a favor by killing, end quote, Jews. There is no source on the meme, and a Reuters investigation has made clear that there is no reason to suggest the warning was made by Hitler, who saw black people as a threat to the purity of the Germanic race. In his rap songs, Brooks also bragged that he was a, quote, terrorist and a, quote, killer in the city, according to The Sun. Brooks is charged with 5 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, with a 6th expected to be added soon following the death of Jackson Sparks, 8 years old, who had been in a critical condition after the attack. Each homicide count carries a potential sentence of life without parole. Given the seriousness of his crime, which occurred after he was cut loose on inappropriately low bail, in an unrelated case, he was held on a $5 million bail. Now, all the while this is happening and all this particular events were unfolding, our personal hero, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, decides to tweet about bail reform and how bails should be lowered and should get rid of the bail system. It needs a complete overhaul because it's unfair. It doesn't treat people fair. My question to the Congresswoman would be, is this fair that he was out on an inappropriately low bail? Will you fix this so that he can continue to get out? And is $5 million now incredibly too high for this particular individual? But going back to the beginning of this episode, we wanted to take a look and compare how the two people were treated. And we can see in CNN's own reporting, they have not done a deep dive or even a small dive into Mr. Brooks' social media. They did not take a look at his particular details and have not posted any article, any release in regards to the series of posts that the New York Post has done. Now, what's scary about CNN is that CNN, yes, they do have access to the 24-hour a day, 7 days a week news cycle that is on television, but they're not going back and correcting this. Now, enough people need to see this and they can form an opinion without having all of the facts. If we are going to do, and as journalists are going to take a look and do research on an individuals to find out what drove them, why their motives are there, along with professionals, and you're reporting on one ethnicity's social media, but omitting another ethnicity's social media, can you really claim that your news agency is not biased? Now, I want to read out one last bit of social media from Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo from November 19th, 2021 said the following: "We come together to mourn the lives lost to the same racist system that devalues black lives and devalued the lives of Anthony and Jojo. Hashtag Reimagine Kenosha. And we'll leave off with Joseph Rosenbaum, aka Jojo. Jojo received his nickname while living on the streets. And just to highlight some of his past gracious deeds, Rosenbaum was a registered sex offender. At the time of his death, he was on the Wisconsin Sex Offender Registry for an Arizona child molestation case. He faced 11 charges in that case, but they were amended in the plea deal, and Rosenbaum was convicted of amended counts. According to online court records, Rosenbaum received 10 years in prison on December 12th, 2002 for sexual contact of a minor, and then was sentenced to 2 years, 6 months for sexual contact of a minor related to the same 2002 incident. Some of the counts alleged anal rape and oral sex with minors, masturbating in front of a 15-year-old, distributing naked photos of a woman to a minor under the age of 18, and other similar offenses. In a plea deal, he was convicted of sexual conduct with a minor in the second degree. Rosenbaum was convicted on August 8, 2016 for interfering with a monitoring device and was placed on a lifetime probation in 2002. However, court records say he had no violations while on parole, including using synthetic cannabinoid or alcohol, not participating in sex offender treatment, and accessing sexually oriented materials considered inappropriate. While in prison in Arizona, he racked up many violations. Disobey written orders, assault on staff, possession of drugs, arson, throwing substances. It's a long list to go over, and I would encourage you to take a look at his information. Refusal to work, giving and receiving tattoos, disobeying orders. In Wisconsin, he continued getting in trouble with the law. He had open criminal cases, according to Wisconsin online court records, was for misdemeanor bail jumping and was filed on July 30th, 2020. He also had a misdemeanor cases for battery with a domestic abuse modifier and disorderly conduct. The bail conditions read not to possess or consume alcohol, not to possess or consume controlled substances without a prescription, no contact including the resident's electronic or third party with particular individual. Now, I can appreciate, we all can appreciate Mark Ruffalo's stunning rendition of the Hulk, but for him to think that we need to mourn the lies of JoJo, that we need to sit back and think about this poor individual who was at a protest, burning and looting, and he gets shot. And we should all mourn this poor person. Has to say something about Hollywood. Has to say something about the people that support that message or can thank it, and like it, and share it, and praise it. But he can't come to grips to have the same concern and empathy for the children that died on a parade. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of The Fact Is. We hope that you have a great week, and be sure to take a look at our Facebook page, our Twitter accounts, and on droidscanada.com. This has been The Fact Is. I'm your host, Hollis Grant. Have a great week.
Dan, what happens every Thursday?
That would be DCR Droids Canada Radio.
And what time is it on Thursday?
That's from 9 till 11 p.m.
Dumb question. Where do you find it?
You find that at accessradio.ca.
And what's the best part?
It's free.